Hey guys, welcome back to another installment of my 70s series of the week videos. This one was, I've kind of had this one in mind for a while, but I've kind of had a couple of requests, and this kind of goes up to my buddies Dr. Von Chilla and Eric K. Now, anybody that read PLOP when they were a kid or whenever they started reading it, I mean, it was pretty much, sort of like a sketch comedy comic. This was the baby of Joe Orlando, and at the time, Joe Orlando, of course, he worked with EC. He was one of the architects of EC, so he kind of knew about zany, off-the-wall stuff, and he was actually the editor for DC's horror stuff when this book came about. I think some titles that they were originally going to call this was Black Humor, Weird Humor. One time they were going to call it Zany, and I think actually Carmine Infantino suggested the name Plop. So I'm just going to kind of list off some people that were, kind of synonymous with this book. I'm not going to go into every story or who did what, but probably the two biggest names that were associated with this book were Basil Wolverton, who did a lot of the covers, like you see there, and Sergio Aragonés. You see a lot of his artwork in the margins here, like on the early issues, and of course, like all the I think just about every one of the issues has his art in it, and you kind of see a little framing sequence in some of these early ones that has Cain and Abel and Eve from the mystery books, kind of done in the comical way. But a lot of great stories, and I just enjoyed this book so much when I was a kid, and still do. I was kind of reading through some of these issues, and I was still getting a chuckle out of it. But a lot of the names other than Wolverton and Aragonés. It's just like a who's who of who worked for DC at that time. You got Frank Robbins, and this is artists and writers. Frank Robbins, George Evans, Sheldon Mayer, Alfredo Alcala. Some names that you'll see a lot in these books: John Albano and Stephen Skeets or Skates. I still don't know how to pronounce his name. A guy named Robert Johnson. And a lot of you might not recognize that name, but if you remember a lot of the little one-page gag cartoons like the prison plops, the prescription plops, monster plops, kid plops, like when you saw the like the guys hanging in the dungeon from the wrist, that was that guy, and I think he signed his artwork as Slim, but his real name was Robert Johnson. So you see a lot of his stuff, a lot of Wally Wood, and especially Dave Manick. Did a lot of work on those, and other guys that were associated with that. Bernie Wrightson, I think he had like a story called The Gourmet in the first issue of this, which was actually reprinted a couple of times. Pretty good little story. More people that worked on it was Jack Olick, Nick Cardy, George Cashton, Henry Scarpelli, who did a lot of DC's humor stuff. Martin Pascoe, Mike Sikowski, Bob Oscar, Kurt Schaffenberger, even Marv Wolfman and Paul Levitz got in on the act on this. Jack Adler, Frank Thorne, David Michelini, Ramona Fraden, Nelson Bridwell, Rick Estrada, and Alex Toth. Just like a who's who of great people in that book. So on this first issue, we got Arms Armstrong, great Wolverton cover. I'm sorry. And this one I really need to upgrade because it's got a little chunk out of the top and bottom corners. Otherwise, it looks real nice, but I just haven't had time to replace that one yet. Number 2 with Art Arteries, another Basil Wolverton cover. And there's another copy. I think this is probably my original. This one's kind of beat up, but okay, another Wolverton cover. Number 3. Like I say, you're going to see Sergio Aragonés, the little, if you kind of look close, you can kind of tell its artwork in the margins. And he always had several stories or illustrations in the book. Number 4, with Newly Nostradamus. I always loved that cover. Number 5, with Nails Middle. More Worlds and Greatness. And Fly Me, I'm Josephine, on number 6. Nothing better than a DC 20 center, huh? Okay, plop number 7 with Byron Big Brain the Third. You gotta love these covers. And number 8 with Billy Button. You know, these Wolverton illustrations kind of remind me of some of the trading cards that they had out when I was a kid. I don't know if it was the Wacky Packages or I don't know. Anybody that bought bubblegum cards back in the 70s, you know, there was always these kind of creatures on them. Okay, another copy of number 8. It's probably a little bit more high grade. Number 9. And this just ran, I think, from 1973 to 76, so just 24 issues. Another copy of number 9. Number 10, I really like this one, with Feats Flegel. Number 11, with Asher, Crasher, and Basher. Number 12, with Messy Tessie. Cool stuff. Get those out of the way. Go to the second stack. Okay, number 13. It's a great Wally Wood cover with Multiple Mouth McCarty. And there's another copy of 13. Number 14 with Darlin' Daisy Dalrymple. That Wolverton had a very active imagination. Another Wally Wood cover, number 15, Roaring Rodney Roadrunner. That's a mouthful. More Wally Wood on number 16. Tonsils Thompson, number 17. That just looks painful. Number 18, kind of used a photo background with that. Was pretty cool. I think a lot of these books that DC did that had the illustrations with the photo backgrounds. I think it was a guy that worked in DC's production department, Jack Adler, did a lot of this stuff. More Wally Wood on number 19. Smokin' Sanford. Pretty cool. A lot of good memories, a lot of Saturday afternoons after coming back from getting a haircut and walking on over to the drugstore and picking out a pile of comics, and I always tried to pick up Plop whenever I could. And on number 20, this is kind of what I was talking about, a lot of the stuff Dave Manick did, the prison Plops. Okay, and after number 20, the last 4 issues went to a giant size. I think that's a Joe Orlando cover with Peter Pureheart. Okay. And I think this is more David Manick on the cover here. And this is one of the DC Comics Salutes the Bicentennial books that I did a video on a while back. 23. This one has got a story probably of note. Wally Wood did a parody of Lord of the Rings, a story called King of the Ring. So it's pretty funny. I would highly recommend searching this one out.